Ah, yes, the grandfather of the action RPG genre. Not the great-grandfather, mind you, that would be Dragon Slayer, I believe? But either way, the game series is one that's always held a special place in my heart, and one of its entries is my favorite game of all time. But I have to admit these games are not very well balanced, and about half of them are more than qualified to get an episode in this series, and don't worry, they will. But for now, I felt it was proper we go back to 1987 to look at the game that started it all. Or the 2009 PSP remake, because it's the version I own, and it's also the version that you can still get your hands on these days because it's on Steam. And honestly, it might be more difficult than the original if we're being real. Get comfy, boys and girls, because we've got ourselves a double feature in this episode. And because it's tradition, let's go over Leadup real quick. The game begins with Adol getting shipwrecked because he has comedically cursed luck with boats, with him either getting destroyed, boarded by pirates, or somehow or another he ends up falling overboard, or the ship gets eaten by a kraken. You name it, this series is wild. After talking to everyone in the village, we're given an objective to head to the priest's shrine, and in there we'll come across and face off against Genocrest, who will likely die in 3 or 4 hits because he has very little durability. Speaking with fortune teller Sarah, she realizes we may be the hero of legends, and we're given an objective to head to the Tower of the Goddess.
The beasts have come back to life, and everything else has happened just as the legends said it freaking would.
I have plenty of those outtakes, by the way. Anyways, after Adol heads up and reaches the top of this prison tower, he fights a giant centipede named Natilger, who thankfully is super easy in this game, especially compared to his Ys Origins counterpart, and saves an amnesiac girl named Fina. When returning to town, we unfortunately learn tragedy has struck. Sarah was killed because Dallas realized taking out the in-game hint system is a pretty smart move. We've got to keep going, and our only current lead is her adopted daughter Rhea, who asks us to head down to the silver mine to find her missing silver harmonica because it's important for video game reasons. It's 1987, go with it. The silver mines aren't that difficult of a dungeon, thankfully, but it can be pretty hard to see in here since it's, dark. And also, you have to be careful not to run ahead too quickly, or you might find yourself getting swarmed by enemies before you know it. Then you see a totally not suspicious treasure chest, and it's time to fight it. Now, given that this game originally came out in 1987, Vagilan is not difficult for some deep and cryptic reason. The boss only has 2 attacks, if even that, but he's able to perform them, and both of them involve turning into a bunch of little bats. He can form a swarm of bats that charge directly into you at a fairly high speed, and honestly, this attack is his most damaging, but it's completely fine. I have no problem with it. However, his other attack is turning into a swarm of bats that just all sort of fly out in random directions. This attack sucks because each bat has its own hitbox, so each one of them touches you and chips you down. It's like a bullet hell, but the bullets move in random directions at seemingly random speeds before deciding to speed up to Mach 2 to suddenly converge in a random location. So, how do you damage this boss? Well, you see that animation where the boss comes together and he stretches his wings? That's your opportunity to hit him. Seems pretty short, right? Well, yeah, it's not even a full second. Except guess what? I lied. That full animation doesn't show when he's vulnerable. He's only vulnerable from the point his body forms together to the point his wings fully stretch out. So it may seem like you have very little time to hit him since the entire animation isn't even a second long. You have roughly half that amount of time that you think you do. You have just over 0.4 seconds to hit him. 14 frames. He is vulnerable for 14 frames, or 28 if you're running the game at 60 FPS, but that leads to its own issues, so don't do that. That is less than the average human's reaction speed. You may think the red swirl is a great indicator and makes it a non-issue, but you have so little time that all that swirl does is tell you to get prepared for the QuickTime event. The sound effect isn't making it too easy either, it's the only thing that's making this fight remotely possible, however. And there isn't a set amount of time he remains as a bat swarm. I've seen him separate only to reform 2 seconds later. I've seen him go for over 45 seconds as a swarm of invincible damage. It's just fucking random. And while he doesn't nuke your health bar, every single individual bat can hit you and take off a little chunk of your health, which adds up really fast. when he's the first boss with a health bar that covers the full UI, and he takes about 15 hits to kill, which is quite a bit. Oh, but what about your blessing rings that can halve the damage he does, double the damage you do, or even cut his movement speed in half? Those have to be awesome, right? Wrong. Because for some reason, beyond my comprehension, the blessing rings don't work in boss fights. They do nothing. So how in the ever-loving Christ are you supposed to win? Well, obviously, you want all your silver equipment thrown on. It's mandatory anyways, it's the strongest equipment outside of the final dungeon, so it's a good idea to just come in prepared for war. That's fine, that makes sense. Classic RPG stuff, stronger gear, more damage, less damage you take. Yeah, okay, got it. But the only other preparation you can really do is grind levels because it's an RPG from 1987. Well, okay, fine, just power up and outlevel the boss, right? Except don't get it mistaken, you don't grind and gain a few levels. You grind until you reach max level. I'm not kidding. You did not mishear me. The primary piece of advice to beat Vagilon is to grind up to max level. This is the third boss in the game, out of 7. The best strategy is to put on the strongest equipment you can and grind to the level cap to beat the boss halfway through the game. Does anyone else see the problem here? Even with all that preparation, this boss still has way too much health for an opponent with barely any time to actually damage him. In fact, one of my earliest videos I uploaded was an all bosses video of Ys 1, and almost half the video's runtime was just this boss fight. Even at the maximum possible strength, you're still barely scratching this boss, and it's going to take a while. It's not fun. Otherwise, I do have a little bit of advice. It's not completely sunk or try it until you win. What I would say is keep your distance when he's in his Bat Swarm mode. No shit, Sherlock. And also, what you want to do is try to stay on the opposite corner of the arena from Vagilon, as we're going to manipulate his AI a bit, as this vastly increases his odds of just charging directly at you, and sometimes even forming to make himself vulnerable for a moment. If his AI cooperates, it can actually be a little bit fun juking him out and getting the strikes in. But that's a big if, because if he scatters and fucks off, you're kind of out of luck and will probably have to eat some damage. And this footage you're seeing here is on normal mode. He still does a decent bit of chipping you down. If you were playing on Nightmare mode, instead of chipping you down, it's more like he's shooting you with a shotgun each time he hits you. Yeah, be careful. But eventually, with a bit of a plan in mind, and a fair bit of luck, you'll probably have to eat some damage, but eventually you should come away with a win. We found the silver harmonica a little bit earlier, so to try and make the ordeal feel a bit more worthwhile, we're given another Book of Ys, which is nice, but I still feel like Adol in this anime outtake.
I'd like to thank you by playing a song.
A song? Next time get your own damn harmonica.
Now, if I wanted to be lazy or engagement farm, I could end the video right here and get a bunch of easy comments because people who have played this game know there's more pain and suffering ahead, but I won't, so we have to ascend Darm Tower, and for some reason Fina and Rhea also are inexplicably called here.
Jiba, I will... Oh, fuck me, okay.
So, when we enter the final level of the game, at one point we get captured and a lot of our silver equipment gets taken, we have to earn it back.
Ruda, is this a dungeon?
No shit, Sherlock.
Thankfully though, after the awful fight against Vagilon and a weird prison break sequence, you're given a battle against Pictomos as a palate cleanser. He's far and away the best boss fight in the game because he's just a fair boss without any bullshit, and his music is quite awesome. But I couldn't make a video on awful difficulty in Ys 1 and not talk about the final boss fight. See, at the top of Darm Tower, a dungeon that's so massive it takes up almost half the game's runtime, and holds a majority of its boss fights, we come across our main villain, Dark Fecht, the ancient priest that fell to corruption and became one of the leaders of the demonic forces. Now, all that generic stuff aside, he's actually a reasonably complex character, especially for a game in the 80s, but we don't learn about any of that until the sequel, where he's kind of the spirit that bestows magic upon you and gives you a bit of advice. So for now, he's just obligatory big bad evil guy at the end of the game. Either way, we're required to fight bootleg Griffith. Okay, to be fair, Dark Fecht existed before Griffith did, but his anime design came out after Berserk did, and do not tell me the appearance isn't at least inspired by the man who did nothing wrong.
This heart isn't mine anyway. I beat it off a Tin Man when I was visiting Oz.
Now here's what an average boss fight against Dark Fecht looks like. This boss has one attack he can do, and that is firing a projectile which hits the arena, then spreads out into 8 bullets. And they're raining down constantly. They hit like a truck, and even with your best equipment, you can barely scratch him. And that's because the strongest equipment in the game is actually suboptimal for this fight. You want to go back to using the silver armor and the Clarius sword. A little bit odd, but it makes sense that the equipment of the hero would be the best gear against the final boss. It's just gonna throw you off a little bit. That part's fine. The problem is you have to stay on the move constantly because he doesn't chip away at you, he burns your ass to the ground really quickly. Granted, you can also kill him super quickly, as a fight will never last more than a minute here, but his projectiles aren't 1 bullet, they're 8, and a direct hit will shred you regardless of what you have equipped or what difficulty you're on. But none of this really matters compared to the real issue in the room. That is, the lack of room. If you hit him, the floor beneath you will collapse almost instantly. If you're not moving at top speed, you'll fall through the arena and die instantly. Now you may be wondering, but wouldn't that lead to situations where you can get locked off from the boss arena or get trapped and be forced to fall to your death? Yes! Yes it does! And you can't just camp out at the edges of the arena either, because his projectiles come from every angle and move super fast while he's bouncing around the arena like the world's most aggressive DVD logo. So you gotta hoof it to where you think he's going to be. Now, I'll concede, on easy mode, this fight is a cakewalk as long as you keep moving, but even on normal mode, this fight will still take you upwards of 20 attempts and is pushing it. I get the idea for the gimmick, but the gimmick is stupid. And even Falcom acknowledges this because they've poked fun at it as well in their external media. Now, as for the highest difficulty on Nightmare Mode? Well, let me put it this way. I remember when I originally played this game on Nightmare Mode, it took me longer to kill this boss that doesn't even last a full minute than it did for me to beat the rest of the game. Don't play this game on Nightmare Mode, it's not worth it. Play it on easy mode, I don't give a shit. What I want to know is, how the fuck did Falcom manage to make 2 separate bat bosses some of the worst fights in video game history? I don't know. You thought this was gonna be a filler episode? Nah man, this is my downward spiral. Fuck this boss fight, fuck Vagilon, and honestly, fuck Ys 1. Okay, maybe not that last part. And that's gonna do it for this video. Sure, these fights are much simpler bosses than some of them I've covered, but it doesn't matter if a serial killer takes you out with a jigsaw trap or a shotgun to the head, you're still very much dead. I love the Ys series. It's got some of my favorite games of all time in the series, but I'm not gonna glaze it and say it's perfect. This series hasn't just had stumbling points, it's had moments where it's fallen flat on its face. The general gameplay loop of Ys 1 can be enjoyable, and despite originally coming out from 1987, the story is surprisingly pretty well made, but I'm not going to go and recommend you play the game even if you are interested in the series. If you really want this gameplay style, I would say you could pretty much start with Ys 2. Though, as you've seen throughout the video, if you want to know the story beats, well, the first Ys game has an anime adaptation, and I genuinely consider it to be one of the better versions of the game's story, and also just a better anime adaptation than most video games get. It's got plenty of good character writing, it's just filled with a bunch of goofy 90s rough edges and charm. It's also only 7 episodes long, and you can find the whole thing on YouTube if you want to, as well as the outtakes, because they're pretty funny, and I wish more shows still had outtakes publicly available. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. For those that have been making requests, I have actually begun playing Library of Ruina, though as of this recording I haven't reached the Queen of Hatred yet, so I've got some lofty expectations. Hopefully it lives up to the hype, because if not, well, honestly, if I'm not getting subjected to Chinese water torture, I'm gonna be disappointed from all the hype that she's been getting. Otherwise, that's about it. I thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more content of varying quality, consider liking, subscribing, and hyping the video, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.
My lord, there is evidence which clearly indicates that this mattress is free!